not real. So can't remember the last time I had a nightmare.
So you didn't think that when you saw the demons, you didn't give that any sort of, you
Yeah,
didn't
because
think it was an actual.
I knew they weren't. I didn't know knew they weren't real. You know.
Okay. So when you hear about like life after death experiences, are you kind of thinking that that's what's happening to people?
Yes.
Their brain chemistry is overflowing, and they're attaching religious significance to it because of the religion they were trained in. I'd imagine that's how.
I think that's more likely the case. Yes. I don't have any reason not to believe that.
Right. But you are fair-minded enough that if you're convinced, your one spiritual experience was convincing enough that if all the other things were equal, and you felt cool about the church that you were part of, you probably wouldn't have walked away from it. So
Yes.
that's something to keep in mind if you're a Christian listening to this.
And
Do a much better job of being good people all around.
And I'll give you some other, since you primarily have a theistic audience, I'll give them a piece of advice from an agnostic. And first, let me clarify why I'm agnostic. An agnostic is real simple. A person who doesn't believe but hasn't assigned a truth value to the proposition of at least one God exists. Okay, so when you talk about like a lack theist or a person who doesn't believe there's a God, but claims to be an atheist, which is fine. That's a colloquial way of doing it. I reject that, right? To me, not believing in a God is not sufficient to be called an atheist. To be an atheist, right, you have to have a necessary precondition of not believing in God, but it's not sufficient because in academia, atheism is the belief that theism is false, or their belief that no gods, right? That is straight up truth. Anybody who watches this video who doesn't believe that, go read a book on it, because I'm not BSing you. All the stuff you ever hear on YouTube and G+ about, atheism is just a lack of belief, that is wrong when it comes to philosophy. That is wrong when it comes to academia. It only holds true in colloquial terms, and if you want to use it, that's fine. But if a person tells you, I am not atheist because I use formal definitions, don't call them an atheist, because epistemically, they are not atheists. It's just as bad as a theist calling an atheist a theist because they know God because of Romans, right? So don't mislabel people. But let me give you the best piece of advice for theists. If you're going to convince somebody that what you're saying is true, stay away from these radicalized evangelicals that don't know what the hell they're talking about, because they make all theists look bad. When you have people out there that are so damn dumb that don't even understand the most basic of concepts, and they're representing theists, they make theists look stupid. Because my thing is, why is God using these people as their PR peers? Why is their PR people? You like, even, you know, Sagard I like, SJ I like. Good representations. I mean, SJ I think is bad at her apologetics, but she's a good person, right? I believe she means no ill will. She has a good heart, right? That's fine. Totally. But these other people are duplicitous, man. Just duplicitous.
Well, and they give that's even in the Bible. You know, you just quoted the Bible. It said, "But because of you, my name is blasphemed amongst the Gentiles." Because of poorly, Christians going out there not doing it correctly. But even worse than that is you got, a lot of them. I don't really want to go into, because I don't want to bring them up. But you got some people out there who were relatively famous, and briefly. Because they're making arguments that are actually really kind of evil or totally counterproductive to, making Christianity look good or being an ambassador to Christ, let's say. Total counterproductive.
Yeah,
but
no,
Stephanie and Cy are ambassadors for Christ in the good way. They're presenting their case, and they're trying to the best of their ability to be diplomatic and not hateful, and put the best foot forward. Correct?
Yes. Yeah, and like I said, I don't have to agree with them to recognize that. And I think that a lot of atheist non-believers make that mistake. And here's the thing. I'd rather have somebody like Sagart that I know knows science and that I'm just in awe of when it comes to his expertise. And I'd love one day to maybe actually talk more about his expertise. We never really have, and I think it sucks, because I really do like to learn a little more biochemistry. It's never been a field that I never really studied. I never got good. I took inorganic chemistry, right? I had to qualify secondary chemist. But that's all inorganic stoichiometric chemistry, not the same as organic by any stretch of the imagination. And so I wish I could learn something from him, like Vesper theory more. Like I had to learn Vesper theory and
Vespa theory, like the Vespa, like little mopeds.
No, when it comes to valence of electrons.
Oh, okay.
When
I
you
know it.
like,
Yeah, I know it really well. I know it
yes,
really well.
valence shell electron pair repulsion. Basically, when you're dealing with orbitals, you have sp1, sp2, sp3, and these are hybrids that exist because of the sharing of the orbitals of the electrons. And it's fascinating how it works. And you look at the 3D modeling, and it's really awesome. I like that kind of stuff, right? And if I can remember some of that stuff from its like first year stuff, I would be thrilled to have a conversation like that. But long story short, I don't have to agree with him about his theism for him to be an ally, because we agree upon the stuff that I agree upon the most, or that I want to agree upon the most, like secularism, get creationism out of schools, teach evolution. If he believes in all that stuff, the rest is geedunk. I don't care. He can believe Jesus walked on water, and I'll be like standing right beside him and going, "Go for it, buddy." Doesn't bother me, because he will say you cannot teach creationism in school. That's the thing that I'm concerned about, right?
Right. No, I totally understand. There are some things that are there. You have core values and beliefs that phrase, but yeah, no, I totally understand what you mean. There's things that are deeply important to you about what
Yes.
we discuss, and there are other things that are, they're interesting, but they're irrelevant. What they you chalk them up to personal beliefs, and they don't contradict any of your own innate code of ethics. So you're like, whatever, live and live, live and let live. It's not a challenge to. It's not something that you find morally wrong.
Yeah, it doesn't affect my life if somebody has a belief, or that belief is false or not. As long as it's not encroaching upon the secular society, it is not my
In a
battle to
way that you
fight.
think is it's possible, and let's see, since you seem to be in an agreeable place, it's possible that even we could encroach on secular society in a positive way rather than a negative way. You just don't want it encroaching in a negative way, interrupting what you think is proper science, or trying to teach this in schools that you think is wrong. But it's possible that it could, people could bring their Christian values in a positive way, and then you'd be fine as long as you thought it was positive, right?
No, not really. I don't think. Still, I don't think there should be any Christian values in school. I don't like the Ten Commandments in school.
No, that's not what I meant. I meant
What do you
I
mean?
meant I meant like if I'm a Christian, you're totally cool with that as long as my beliefs are kept to myself, or when they encroach on society at large, they're beliefs
Yes.
that
Oh,
you think are
absolutely.
positive.
Sure.
They're positive.
Yeah. I mean,
You
that's why I
only
kind of.
object to it when it's negative.
Yeah, exactly. Look, I know a lot of anti-theists, and the only way I stand for anti-theist is when people misrepresent atheism, right?
Right.
Because I concur with like Gallus Cranium. His definition of anti-theism is what I use. This is what most people use that read the
What's
literature.
his? What's his? I don't know what his
Anti-theism
is.
is somebody that's against the concept of God or against religion. It's not against God himself. It's not somebody who hates God. It's not somebody who believes God does not exist. Because I've heard people tell me, "Oh, Steve, you're so wrong. You cannot be an atheist who says that you believe God does not exist, because that makes you an anti-theist." Well, no, it does not. Excuse me, they're completely different things. And so,
I guess.
there, Cosmic Skeptic made that mistake, and Goddess Cranium actually corrected him on that. Atheism and anti-theism are very different things. And there's such a muddy in the water when you're using these terms, because people have used them differently. Like if I say strong atheist, that just means in the literature an atheist. It means a philosophical or propositional atheist that believes God does not exist. That's what it is. But Dawkins took that and turned it into something else. He took strong atheist to mean somebody who's 100% sure there's no gods. That's not what it ever meant.
Right. Well, with the one with all that atheism means is a lack of belief in God. The reason why people were latching onto that colloquial definition is that it's much easier to defend. It's kind of a way of fudging a debate, because I don't mind, because I accept that if you want to say the burden of proof is all on me, that's fine. But the reason why they would latch on to that as the definition of atheism is to it's much easier to defend in an argument. It's much easier it's hard to win an argument against that definition, because you can just then I got to prove everything in the argument.
Yeah, yes, yeah. See, okay. First of all, I respect the theists because they will take on the burden of proof, because they recognize that if they're going to say that something is true, there's an attached burden of proof. But here's what a lot of people don't understand. The burden of proof in that situation does not mean that you prove God exists. A theist does not have to prove God exists to be a theist. They don't have to prove God exists to accept a burden of proof. That's not what it means. It doesn't mean to prove anything. It is an epistemic burden, meaning that they need to give justification to why they hold the position. Okay? It's not an evidential burden of proof. It's an epistemic burden of proof. There's a huge difference, right? And I wrote a blog on this. If anyone wants to read it, you can go to www.greatdebatecommunity.com, look in the philosophy section, and I wrote a blog on this particular thing, atheist and the burden of proof. Because when you confuse those two, you make I'll link it to you. There's a huge difference between the two, because if, for example, in a science setting, right, and I'm sure Sai will concur with this, if you say theory of relativity is wrong, okay, you have the onus to demonstrate that. Nobody has shit else to do, no matter what. If they disbelieve you or not believe you, they do not have anything they need to do in that particular case. That is a monolateral thing. That is a one-sided thing. Just like if you're when Sai got his PhD, I'm pretty damn sure he had to stand in front of a bunch of people, or whatever review board, and defend his thesis, right? Nobody on the board. Right. He couldn't ask any questions. They didn't get it. They could have said whatever they want. They could have asked him what they want, but they don't. They're not the ones putting forth that claim. They have no onus. But those are rare instances when you don't have an onus, right? Defending your PhD, submitting a claim against science. But when it comes to theological claims, when it comes to an interrogatory between two people, both of them come to the table. Both of them have a burden of proof, right? And for somebody to sit there and say, oh, well, I just don't believe you, I lack a belief, I got to tell you, most of the time that's dishonest. Because I've known a lot of them have said that, but deep down they do believe that gods don't exist, and they're just trying to get away from that burden, because they don't understand that the burden for an atheist, for a justification is pretty damn easy. I could make the burden,
right? Of course,
for being a strong atheist, but I'm epistemically not that position,
right?
So I don't do that.
Right. All I'm trying to say is that, and most of the atheist back and forths are unproductive. So there's a lot of different ways, but why they would adopt a colloquial definition, even though they don't necessarily believe the colloquial definition, is that the Christian will. If you say God doesn't exist, now I, the Christian, will start trying to bust your balls by going, "Oh yeah, prove it," and it becomes, That's why it's much easier just to adopt a colloquial definition, even though it isn't necessarily all that accurate. Now, go ahead.
Yeah. The thing is, if I can recommend to your theist audience, look, if you want to discuss these topics and you run across somebody that says, you know what, I don't have any belief, or I don't believe you, blah, 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 walk away. Say, okay, whatever. Why the hell do I care if you believe me? Find somebody else.
Yeah.
And then the reason I say that is because it's a waste of freaking time.
It's a total waste of time. I agree with Steve completely. Listen to him. He's wise. There's a reason why he's in charge of these guys.
I'm not in charge of any, but nobody listens to me. Are you kidding? But I'll give advice to the atheists, too, that might ever listen to this. Think about this, atheist. If you are trying to convince a theist that your position is correct, and I'm going to, because arguendo, I'm saying that atheism is a belief, because that's how I use the word. So however you believe it, that word is supposed to be used, that's up to you. But in my conversation, atheism is a belief. So if you believe that there are no gods, why don't you provide an argument for that, right? What's more convincing to a theist? An atheist who says, I just don't believe you, and you go, okay, who cares? Or somebody says, hey, you know what, Craig? Not only do I not believe you, I believe you're wrong, and I believe there are no gods. And here's my reasons why. It is more likely the theist will sit and listen to have that conversation and have the potential to no longer be a theist, if that's your goal. But you're never going to convert a theist by saying, I don't believe you.
Or have a productive
conversation.
Right. Because the objections, if you say, I don't, this is part of why when I'm getting atheists on this show is I'm trying to dig in to try, not with you right now, but in general, I want to try and dig in and find out, why they became an atheist. You got Godless Craner was on the show, and I'll probably have him back soon.
He's great.
Yeah, he's a cool guy. He's not Shannon, but he's a cool guy.
Nobody's Shannon. Yeah,
no, nobody.
Shannon's the best. So I have to say that because if she ever listens to this and doesn't hear me say that, she gets mad and beats me. I'm just kidding.
She